Hey everyone, it's Bryony from Stitched Up, and today I'm going to be reworking this tired old men's shirt into a tie shoulder summery top. What you'll need for this project is your shirt, an iron, a sewing machine threaded up in a matching colour, some elastic and some bias binding, which is a little bit thicker than your elastic, shirring elastic, which is elasticated thread for your sewing machine, and then you'll need your usual sewing tools, some fabric scissors, some pins, unpicker, snips, and a chalk in a colour that will contrast with your shirt. Plus you will also find very handy a safety pin, a knitting needle or wooden skewer or something similar, and some rulers. So you can see here why this shirt is basically beyond its life in its current form as a shirt. It's got some armpit stains, it's got a bit of ink spots on the sleeve there, and also on the upper back there's a few marks. So basically, yeah, it's done its job as a shirt, and now if it's going to continue as a garment, we need to make it into something else. We're going to use the bottom half of the shirt as the bodice, so from the armpits down. That's going to be, we're just going to do a sort of bandeau boob tube style top. So the first thing to do is just do a straight line right across just under the arms and then cut that off. Okay, so having now tried on my shirt and the bodice part that we've got left, I was gonna leave the shaped hem at the bottom, but I've decided I am gonna get rid of that. So I'm just gonna draw a straight line straight across, and then I'm gonna cut that. With both the top and the bottom of the shirt, I'm going to do a double fold hem. So I'm going to do the first one of about ½ centimetre or so, and then about the same again for the next one. And then I'm going to stitch all the way around both the top and the bottom of the shirt with a straight stitch. Okay, so this is what our shirt is looking like now that it's been hemmed at the top and the bottom. I'm going to run a channel all around the top, about 3 centimetres down from the top edge. And through that channel, I'm going to put a piece of elastic that's going to gather it around the top. So I'm just going to turn the shirt inside out. And then with my chalk and a ruler, I'm just going to measure and just mark my 3 centimetres all the way around the top edge of the shirt. I'm going to take my bias binding and I'm just going to get a piece that is long enough to go all the way around the shirt. So plus just add a little bit extra for luck, and also we want to tuck it under at the ends as well. So I'm just folding that over at the end, which will finish the edges off, and then line the top edge of the bias binding with the marks that I've made, the 3 centimetres mark, and then I'm going to just pin that into place. So now I'm over at my sewing machine. What I'm going to do is stitch as close as I can to the top edge and to the bottom edge. So we're going to go all the way around with 2 rows of stitching, and then by the end we'll have a channel that will thread the elastic through. So as I'm getting to this end, I'm just going to snip off the excess because I know that I've got enough bias binding here, and I'm just going to cut it down to size and then just fold the end under to finish it off nicely. So now I have taken a safety pin and attached it to one end of the elastic, and then I've just threaded it all the way through the channel at the top. And once I've got all the way through, I've then cut the elastic off from the reel, and I've left it extra long there and just pinned it into place with a pin on that end and with a safety pin on this end. And the idea behind that is that I can then try the top on, check how tight I want the elastic to be, and then once I've decided that, I will finish these ends off properly. I'm just trying the top on again. The elastic is basically holding it up here. We will come to the fastening bit later. So I've brought some pins, so we're going to add in maybe 2 or 3 rows of shearing. So that's elasticated stitching that gathers in the top. I'm thinking if we have gathering to about here, and then this bit will kind of have a little bit of a frill going on. So now we've got the top with the 3 pins marking where we're going to be doing our elasticated stitching or shearing. So what we need to do now is just draw some guidelines, because we just need something to follow when we're doing the stitching. So I'm just going to measure up from the bottom, and my top pin, the first line of shearing, is 14 centimetres up from the bottom. So I'm doing this marking on the right side of the shirt, so like the outside of the top, because that is the side that we're going to be stitching from. So just be aware of that when you're marking. Use something that's going to come off. So then once you've drawn all those marks on, then you just need to connect all the dots with a straight line to follow. Okay, so now I'm going to take my shearing elastic and a bobbin, and what you have to do is hand wind the elastic onto the bobbin. So be patient with this. We'd recommend, if you've not done shearing before, just have a look at a tutorial which can show you how it basically works. You want to not have much tension on the elastic as you're doing it, because you want it to be able to stretch out when it's sewing onto your fabric. So there's the bobbin that we've just wound. Just going to pop it into the bobbin case and then into the machine, and then pick up the bottom thread as normal. Just pull quite a long tail. I'm going to put the machine on a long straight stitch, and we're going to up the tension a little bit to, I've put it on 6.5, but yeah, just something a little bit higher than you would probably normally use for this kind of fabric. And I would highly recommend that you do a sample piece like I've done on a scrap of the shirt, just to check that it's all working fine before you go for it with your main garment. So I'm working on the right side of the shirt, and I'm just going to start with a stitch length of 0 and then do a couple of stitches instead of a back tack, and then I'm just going to stitch all the way down. And I've found with this machine and this fabric that it gathers much more if I go really slowly, so I'm just going to take it nice and steady. Here I've got the sleeve of the shirt. The sleeve is what we're going to use to create the shoulder ties for the top. And I'm just going to snip the cuff off and open up the sleeve just so we can see how much fabric we've got. So just snip all the way down to open up, all down the underarm seam, just to open up the sleeve, and the same around the armhole. So we've got our sleeve here that we've cut off, and we've got around 21 centimetres here in this section of the sleeve. So what we want to do, I reckon we'll make each strip 5 centimetres wide or 2 inches, and then we'll be able to cut 4 of those out of this piece of the sleeve. And we want to make the straps as long as we can, so whatever length we have here that's just below this discoloured area, we'll use that length. So I've got all the straps here, and what I'm going to do is with them, I've put them in pairs, and I'm just going to cut across the corner just to give the ends of the straps a bit of shape, and I'm just going to use the ones that I've cut as a template for the others. And this just means that the ends of the straps won't be kind of square and bulky. The next thing is I've got them in my pairs, and I'm going to stitch from one straight side all the way along across the end and back up again. And I'm going to do this with the smallest seam allowance that I can, so as close to the raw edges as you can, because we want to keep the straps as wide as we possibly can. So now we're going to turn the straps inside out, and I've just cut across the corner there so that we can get a nice sharp point. Then I'm basically just going to start turning it inside out and just push all of the strap inside itself. And then you can use the knitting needle to help with this. And I just kind of stand it on the table like that, or then you can just, after a bit, you should just be able to push it through. And I'm using the blunt end of the knitting needle so that I don't poke a hole in it. Okay, and then we'll go and give it a press. And then that's what they look like once we've given them a press. Now I'm just pinning on my straps just to check the positioning of them. Once I've done that, I'm just gonna stitch across twice and then we'll be done. So now I'm at the machine with my straps pinned into place. I'm gonna knit in these edges and finish them off with a zigzag stitch. And so for this I'm using quite a wide but a short zigzag stitch, and I'm gonna go just off the edge of the fabric with my stitch. So there we go. It doesn't necessarily look the neatest ever, but it will stop much of the fraying. So now we can attach the straps onto the bodice, and we're just going to use a straight stitch, and we don't want to stitch through, I don't want to stitch through any of my elastic, so I'm going to try and stitch either side just above and below where my channel is. So I'm just going to follow the stitch lines on the outside of the garment. So I've tried the top on, and when it's buttoned up, it does, because the button is just a little bit lower than where the elastic is, it's just gaping open a little bit. So I'm just going to add a little hook and eye to hold it closed. So here she is. I think it's a really great way to, you know, salvage something that was basically going to end up in the recycling otherwise. With this upcycle, we've managed to cut off all the bits that were damaged and come up with something totally new.